All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. So we're going to talk about Jon Jones again, but this time we're going to talk about the Francis Ngannou fight directly. We're going to talk about him retaining Richard Schaefer. We're talking about Dana White's respect for Richard Schaefer, what he said about him, and we're just ultimately going to talk about this whole situation because this is a fight everybody wants to happen. I'm going to talk about why I want this fight to happen so much, and I'm going to explain why Dana is not going to be movable on this, okay? Like, everybody's waiting for Dana to just like, oh, well, you know, so Jon Jones fired his management team and you know, now he's on his own. And then now he's got Richard Schaefer and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, people think that at some point Dana's going to go, oh, well, you know, now that this development happened, I'm going to make Jon Jones this gigantic offer. Like, I've completely reassessed what he's worth. I've completely reassessed how much this fight is going to generate. And I'm just going to give him a guaranteed $15, $20 million. That's what's going to happen because he got Richard Schaefer, because of blah. That's not going to happen. I'm going to explain to you exactly why, okay? Now, I have talked about this before on my channel, but my channel has gotten exponentially bigger since then. I think it's gone up, 150%, maybe 200% in size since I did a video called Dana White to Jon Jones, we don't negotiate with terrorists, okay? Now, here's the deal, okay? Here is the flat out deal. Now, Richard Schaefer is a stud. Those of you guys who don't know who he is, he was the CEO of Golden Boy. Everybody used to think that, like, I mean, even me, I guess. Like, I used to think Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya was a front man. Richard Schaefer is the actual brains behind that operation, okay? So here's the deal, okay? When I said Dana White is in a position where he's not going to budge on this, and I said he's in a position where he can't negotiate with terrorists, it's simple, okay? Dana White is not just, okay, let me rewind. Jon Jones is thinking about Jon Jones. Jon Jones is thinking about this fight with Francis. This is a huge fight. I deserve a ton of money. Agree. I don't disagree with that, right? If you're Jon Jones, right? If you're Jon Jones and you're looking at the situation purely through the eyesight of Jon Jones, right? This is going to be a huge fight. I should get paid a lot of money. Of course, right? Of course. I actually think that Jon Jones is being undervalued by the UFC in this particular fight. I think, a Jon Jones at heavyweight, I mean, as long as this fight happens sometime in the next 100 years, I mean, Jesus, this is like the hype can only last so long. But Jon Jones' first fight at heavyweight, especially if it's against Stipe Miocic or against Francis, especially it's for the title, and you got a fully motivated Jon Jones at heavyweight, like, I want to see this fight so bad. I want to see what the potential greatest fighter of all time has fully motivated, okay? Like, full throttle, fully motivated, okay? You can't expect a guy like that to get fully motivated to fight, you know, any of the recent guys that he fought. Thiago Santos is a badass, but you can't, you know, like, Jon Jones has beat everyone, dude. Like, everything turns into a routine, right? Everything turns into a routine, even being the champion, okay? If you've won 10 straight fights as champion, the 11th, you've cleared up the division and you got this guy that you know is not as good as the last 5 guys you fought, and you're in the gym, you're like, all right, I gotta, you know, make sure I'm staying sharp here. But it's not like Daniel Cormier training for the second Jon Jones fight or Jon Jones fighting or training for the second DC fight. That's a different thing. It's a different type of event. That's what you get with Jon Jones at heavyweight, and we got to get it while he's still young and he's still just as good as he was, and we get to see him at heavyweight. Let's see if those skills transfer when he's fully, you know, focused and he's fighting against the scariest guy ever. I want the Francis and Jon fight. I want it for Eric Nixick. I want it for Francis. They deserve that payday. I want it for Jon Jones. He deserves a payday. And I want it as a fan for everybody because it's going to be an amazing test of you know, the scariest heavyweight ever and potentially the greatest fighter of all time. I mean, but the bottom line is this, right? Going back to what I was saying, Jon Jones is looking at this like, look, I deserve this money. Okay, Dana White's the CEO of an organization. Okay, now Richard Schaefer comes from boxing, right? He comes from boxing. It's a different deal. I understand. You get 2 people into an enclosed space and they fight until someone's unconscious or taps out. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying. Okay, they look very similar. The businesses are not similar at all. Okay, they're not similar at all. Okay, Golden Boy was a promotions company. They would put together events, single events. They had a handful of athletes that would drive all of the revenue. All of the revenue. Okay, like all of it. Okay? You had Mayweather, you had Oscar De La Hoya, you have Canelo Alvarez. Okay, like if you pull those guys off the table and then they're like, all right, well, this guy's a vicious boxer, man. Like this guy, and you don't have any of these big guys to build profiles, and you just kind of pick guys that are just talented boxers. You're selling no pay-per-views, none, okay? The UFC is a well-oiled machine where the guys who are stars became stars coming up through the ranks of the machine that is the UFC. There's infrastructure there, okay? The UFC is a company. It's an organization that has an entire infrastructure-based machine to build stars, okay? Now, when the stars get big enough, they start looking over at boxing. They're like, God damn, that guy really... Now, I will say this. I do think boxers inflate the numbers that they get paid, but that's neither here nor there. They look over there, they're like, this guy's going to make... Like, that guy, he's going to make $80 million for that fight. He's going to make Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Those two guys are going to fight, and each of them is guaranteed $25 million. Okay, that first fight sold 387,000 pay-per-views, okay? And supposedly each of them was guaranteed $25 million. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But the bottom line is it's a different deal. You got two guys who have huge profiles. You're putting together one event. It's like the difference between someone who's putting on a haunted house event, right? It's like, hey, dude, I was thinking, let's do a haunted house in LA this year, right? And, we can get this celebrity and we'll bring in a bunch of people. It's like a singular event, right? Versus a person who's running fucking Disneyland, okay? Disneyland is the UFC. The haunted house is a singular thing. Boxing is haunted house. UFC is Disneyland, okay? So, Dana needs to be thinking about the future of the organization, okay? Now, where Jon fucked up, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, he went public, okay? Now, I know this worked for Masvidal, but you know what Masvidal needed in order to get the deal that he got? He needed Gilbert Burns to get COVID 5 seconds before the fight with Usman, to where they were about to lose all the promotions money that they had put behind that event because Usman was going to have no one to fight. So they had to pay Masvidal what he was asking for, or at least closer to what he was asking for, to get him to take the fight on 7 days' notice, okay? So, that's a freak thing. Okay, Jon Jones, that's not going to happen. He's going up to heavyweight. There's no scenario where it's like, oh, Jon Jones is going to take this fight on 7 days' notice, okay? That's not going to happen. And so the point that I'm making is, if Jon Jones goes public and he's like, I want more money, back up the Brinks truck, Dana. Back it up, son. You want me to fight? You better back that Brinks truck up, right? And he's like, I'm just not going to fight unless they do it. I'm not going to fight unless they pay. I'm not fighting unless the UFC pays. What happens if the UFC pays? Okay? You went public, dude. You went public with your beef. I will not fight for less than $15 million, full stop. Okay? So what happens if the UFC pays? What do you think the next champion is going to do, right? I'm not fighting for less than $15 million. I'm holding out. I am holding out. Okay, that is exactly why Dana learned their fucking lesson with Conor, right? Conor did that. They had to pay Conor because he was such an enormous star, right? But they don't do that anymore. Okay, if they just pay Jon Jones, then Kamaru Usman's next. He's like, look, man, I locked down the division. I'm just not going to fight. Okay, now he doesn't quite have, I don't know. I mean, but you understand the point that I'm making. Okay. If they pay Jon Jones because he went public, now they have to pay everybody. All anyone has to do is just threaten to retire. I just won't fight anymore. I just won't fight. Okay, I've made this exact metaphor before. People who have watched my channel for a long time will know I like to do this. So Henry Cejudo captures the belt at 125 and 135. And then what does he do? He's all, Dana, I think I'm done. I'm just going to go ahead and hang it up, right? So he gets a couple title defenses where he's getting back in on the pay-per-view. He probably got paid, $4 or $5 million. He knows he's probably a frugal guy. He parked a couple $1 million with a money manager. He doesn't need to work anymore. And so he's like, I retired, dude. Dana knows my number. If he wants me to come out of retirement, they're going to have to pay. And Dana's like, okay, peace. Bantamweight division, move on. 125, boom, Figueiredo, bantamweight, stacked to the gills. Because he's not going to pay terrorists, all right? That's why America doesn't negotiate with terrorists. Because as soon as you do, what do you think is going to happen? Oh, geez, these guys, they're holding the entire American Olympic team hostage. They say they're going to kill them if we don't give them $100 million. Well, let's just make sure that we get on television. We've got your money. Don't shoot anyone, okay? Make sure you don't shoot anyone, terrorists. And then they pay. And then what happens, right? What happens next week? Hey, we've got the Olympic skiing team, and we want $150 million. America's like, whoa. Pay that money. Pay that money. The week after that, hey, we've hijacked a plane, okay? We've got 200 American civilians, and we're going to crash it into the ground if we don't get $175 million. And America's like, oh, geez, pay those terrorists, okay? Long-term thinking. That is why Jon Jones, I guarantee you, if Richard Schaefer, if Richard Schaefer's the boss, he's going to know exactly what I'm saying is correct. And anyone who's going to be honest with Jon is going to go, you know where you fucked up, buddy? Is when you went public and you started saying, I'm not fighting without blah, blah, blah. Because if you would have kept it quiet, Dana could have paid. Then they could have paid. Okay, the limiting factor of them paying Jon is Jon saying, I'm not fighting without blah, blah, blah. If they could trust Jon to take money and shut the fuck up about it, then they could pay him. You know what I mean? Like paying Jon an extra $4 million, that's not a huge deal to the UFC, okay? Like, if the numbers make sense, they could do that. If it was just a one-time deal where they're paying Jon Jones an extra $4 million for this particular fight, they could do that. If they could trust Jon to, right? But they can't. They can't. He made it into a pissing match. That's why Dana's like, look, if he's done, he's done. You know, if he's done, he's done. You know, hey, look, he's potentially the greatest of all time. If he doesn't want to fight, he doesn't want to fight. They've got him under contract. He can't fight anywhere else. If Jon Jones wants to fight, again, he has to fight for the UFC. Okay? I guarantee you, what's on my shoulder? I guarantee you they're making him a reasonable offer, man. Like, I guarantee it's reasonable to where with a bunch of pay-per-views, Jon will probably make $6-7 million. That would be my guess. I have absolutely no idea if that's correct or not. But my guess is, since this is always what UFC does, is they tie their comp to the back end, okay? What Jon should be negotiating is a bigger number related to pay-per-view buys, okay? Don't do this shit about like, I want 12 million guaranteed. No. They're not going to restructure the way that they pay athletes just for you. They're not going to do that. Okay, what you should be asking for is, well, I think given the size of this fight, I think I should get $6 per pay-per-view as opposed to the $3 that I average out normally or whatever. You know what I mean? Okay. Then you get your base pay of whatever. Say it's $2 million base pay. He gets $6 per pay-per-view. They do a million pay-per-views. You make $8 million. I mean, look, man, I will allow. No, I won't. Well, maybe I would. Man, Francis, I was gonna say I'd let Francis beat me up for $8 million, but that is I'm not sure if I take that fucking money, man. That's a scary, but whatever. Bottom line is, make your number that you want to make. Oh, I want to make $13 million. Okay, that's your number. So what number of the back end do you want? And then assume that you're going to, if you think you're so fucking valuable, how many pay-per-views are you going to buy? Are you going to sell 1.5 million? Okay, so how many? Okay, so you want $2 million base pay or $1 million base pay, whatever. And then what's it going to take? You know, if you sell 1.5 million pay-per-views, because you're saying you're a huge fucking draw, right? So you're going to do the biggest pay-per-view of the year, so that's 1.5 million. So what number do you need to get to your number? $8 a pay-per-view? That's how you negotiate with the UFC. Put it in their terms. Stop demanding guaranteed money, okay? Because they're not going to negotiate that way. I don't care who your advisor is. I don't care if you have Malky. I don't care if you have Schaefer. It does not matter. They're not going to break the way that they do business for you because you went public. Okay? I love Jon Jones. For the record, I love Jon Jones. He fucked himself on this one though. And I really love Dana White because Dana White's my man. But anyway, if you like the channel, subscribe, ring the bell. Peace.